Welcome back to Designsmith. In this video, we're going to be continuing our series on weekly favorites. Before we get started, please subscribe to support the channel. So in this particular video, I only have time to discuss 5 different things today. We've had a crazy week this week, and today is no exception. So I'm going to be discussing 5 different designs here, and I'll try to go into a little bit more detail into each one so that you can get some insight into why I chose these, and then also get a little bit of inspiration for you and get kind of a more detailed analysis on these posters themselves. So the first one up is this really cool one. The first thing that caught my eye with this one is the pink color palette right here, and I really do enjoy the dark brown colors that are going on right here in these sections. The overall design is meant to look kind of like a crumbled or folded up piece of paper, and I love the use of the typography right here. I love how it's got this slant that's matching right here in this area, and then they're doing the same thing down here in this bottom section. So in order to create something like this in Illustrator, you would just run your pen tool kind of over these sections right here. And that's what these sections actually are. They're individual shapes made up of blending shapes together either with the pen tool or the Pathfinder. And then in order to make sure the text is following that same line right there, you can do it a number of different ways. You can find out what the rotation angle is and then rotate the text to that angle, or you could grab a duplicate of the line itself and make type on a path. There's a number of different ways you can do it. If you want me to cover this specific poster in a future video, let me know down in the comments. And I've talked about this in the past a few times. This is a great example of a poster that utilizes its brand logos very well. Right down here at the bottom, they're using one color for all of the different sponsored logos instead of having all of the brand colors from the sponsors themselves. And that's always easier on the eye, and overall it just looks better when the logos actually match the brand colors of the poster itself. You see it a lot in web design whenever you see like sponsored logos line up. Most of the time they're gray, but they can also match the brand colors of whatever site they're on as well. If you're going to do something similar to this, I would definitely make sure that you are checking with the brand guidelines of whatever sponsored company you're using. But overall, this poster is a very simple design, and it's very effective in its communication. The only thing that I would probably change, of course, I don't have any of the context surrounding the brand of whatever this event is, but I would probably make these 2 fonts right here match each other. And that's mainly for the sake of consistency. However, this could be using the actual logo of whatever this is, Nippon Connection, I think that's how you pronounce it. And if that's the actual logo, then I understand what they're doing here. But if it's not, I would definitely make these 2 fonts match each other. So overall, very cool design, and the color scheme is very like late 80s Baskin-Robbins type of thing. At least for me, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw this, or I could have just been craving ice cream, which is very possible. All right, next up is this really cool and simple design. I love how these shapes and everything are kind of stacking on top of each other. And not only that, but they're also blending into each other. This is a very interesting use of the Pathfinder tool. What they're doing is they're creating a rectangle right here and they're rotating it, and it's kind of going into that circle a little bit. And then they use the Pathfinder tool to blend those 2 shapes together. And as you can see, they're doing the exact same thing as they go into these shapes. You typically don't really see something like this. Normally those shapes are right up against each other, but these shapes are blending into each other, and that's one of the reasons why I chose this to go in this video. And right around this area right here, probably around the halfway spot, is where we have that cool textured glass frosted thing that's going on right here. I'm not sure the exact steps of the method they used for this, but I'm going to guess it was some type of noise filter, maybe even some kind of a glass texture that is laid directly on top of this. But what's very interesting about it is the fact that it just cuts right off right there. So I love the sharp contrast between those 2 sections where the top section doesn't have any of those effects, but the bottom has all of it. And this is another interesting approach on this poster, is the text is actually behind those shapes right there rather than the front. And they're doing the same thing down here where the text is blending into these circles right here. And of course, you still want your text to be legible when you do something like that, but it's not very common to see this kind of layout where the text is actually behind the shapes. So it's a very interesting approach, and I would love to create something like this using Illustrator and Photoshop. All right, the next one up is giving me some serious Marble Madness vibes. If you never played that on the NES, it's an awesome game, very nerve-wracking, and this overall design is actually making me think of that. And I'm sorry that I couldn't find a higher quality image of this. This is the best that I could find. So when you're looking at something like this, your first thought can tend to be, wow, this looks very complex. But they're all just distorted squares, and they're just kind of laying next to each other. And I'll show you kind of in general how to do something like this. So we'll just take our rectangle tool and rotate it. And I'm going to lock this background right here. Let's grab both of these anchor points with our direct select tool and just bring them up right around here. And then we'll do the same thing right there. So it's not exactly precise, but if you were to keep with this pattern, then it would definitely be nice and consistent all the way through. And then you can do the same thing right here. I'm just going to use the pen tool for this quick example. And just go right here and then straight up. And then over here on this side right here. It's actually a little bit taller on that side than it actually needs to be. But that's mainly because we're not recreating this exactly. But this is really just to show you that this isn't as complex as you think it is. And it's a lot easier than you think. So here are our shapes laid directly on top of this poster right here. And as you can see, it's not that difficult to make. And then as far as getting the letters on the inside of these blocks right here, what you would do is use an envelope distort. And I have covered that in previous videos. However, if you want to see me recreate this poster, let me know down in the comments. All right, next up is something that is a big weakness of mine, and that is any combination of yellow, orange, and purple. I think those colors are awesome together, and any kind of a early 90s or a synth wave or retro wave, any type of design like that is really going to catch my eye, and I love everything about this. In terms of the type layout, it's pretty straightforward and very minimal. But the use of the typeface in this poster is really what makes it. The 28 is most likely made up of Helvetica. It could be something that's very similar. I'm not exactly sure. But the 28 here, I'm not entirely sure what font this is, but I would love to find out. If anybody knows, please let me know down in the comments. But they're taking this 28 right here, and in this area, right here, all of these different glows and everything, these are actually coming from blurs, and they're probably specifically crafted in Photoshop. There's a really cool thing you could do in the blur gallery section where you can really customize your blurs and tell them exactly where you want them to go. And then I would say they're probably using kind of like a gradient fill or maybe a gradient stroke going on right here. If it were me, I would probably keep those two layers separate and just kind of give the illusion that the gradient is coming directly off of the text when it's really not. But just like with everything else, there are several ways to accomplish something, whether it's Illustrator or Photoshop. I think I may have done something similar to this in the past, but it's been a while, and I think I might want to do something like that again. All right, the last one up we're going to be talking about is this really cool film festival poster. This is for the Rhode Island International Film Festival from 2012, and it's funny actually because when you look at this, you could definitely tell that this was from 2012. This type of typeface right here was very popular during that time, this kind of geometric, grotesque type of font. And then you had a lot of layering that was popular around that time. I loved seeing all the different posters that came from the early 2010s. And this is something that you probably would see today, but definitely not back then. I would love to see a second font introduced in this poster. This one right here is probably a lowercase version of the uppercase one. I'm not entirely sure, but it would be cool to see something that contrasts this font just a little bit more. That's really the only critique that I would give it, and it's not even really a critique. The design overall works really well. It's obviously based in some type of Swiss design principles. I would love to see the grid that's used here, if there is one. Let's take a look at this right here. This baseline does match up very closely with this. It doesn't look like it's exactly the same, but it is very close. Let's see if we can pull this down here. Yeah, this baseline is just going directly below this one just a little bit, but it's enough for me to notice from a distance, and stuff like that just kind of irks me a little bit. It's fine if you're going to be far enough away where you can tell that it's intentional, but don't put it so close to it and then have it just be a little bit off. It drives me nuts. Then again, there are plenty of things that drive me nuts that would not drive anyone else nuts anywhere on the planet. All right, here's our lineup of our weekly favorites for this week. I'm sorry that I missed the past couple of weeks. Like I said, a lot of crazy things have been happening here lately. I'm going to make sure that I stay on track for next week's videos now that I've got some breathing room. Let me know which one of these is your favorite down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.